Doug Lehman, breaking it down in layman's terms. I got a special guest today, Brynne Tillman. Now, Brynne is the LinkedIn Whisperer. She's the CEO of her own training company. And if you don't know Brynne on LinkedIn, well, you should know Brynne. Brynne, welcome.
Thank you, Doug. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm excited too, because we've had a chance to interact socially on LinkedIn from time to time over the last decade or so. And you're definitely a leader when it comes to LinkedIn and LinkedIn training. And I've heard you interviewed several times, and you came up with the concept of the LinkedIn Rolodex. I thought that was really genius, and how you led to your company. Now, you come from a sales training background, but you made the pivot to go all in on LinkedIn. So if you could just give me a quick highlight of that pivot and your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Social Sales Link is a digital sales training company, and we help B2B salespeople and anyone in a business development role leverage LinkedIn to convert connections and content to conversations. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make with LinkedIn and sales is they use it as a cold calling tool, and they're on there connecting and pitching. And it's really not working, especially in today's remote working world, where we are overwhelmed with the amount of bad salespeople that we have inbound all the time. So you mentioned the Rolodex and the LinkedIn Rolodex. And, you know, I loved sales from a very early age, right out of college in my first job. By the time I was 24, I was training sales at Dun & Bradstreet. And I absolutely felt like it was core to who I was. The one piece I didn't love was the cold calling piece. And although at the time it was absolutely necessary to do business, and I cut my teeth making 80 outbound calls every day, and I did okay. But when I finally made it to the field and I fell in love with sales at the core of who I am, I was getting most of my business through referrals. And all of a sudden I was like, I love this. Like, this is really this is fun, right? And I recall sitting across about 1992, staring at an overflowing Rolodex on a prospect or client's desk. And I thought, man, if I could get my hands on that for 20 minutes, I could see everyone that he knew, and I'd be able to proactively ask for referrals. But it wasn't politically correct at the time to say, hey, Mr. Klein, can I thumb through your address book? However, 2 decades later, I found LinkedIn. And that's what we got.
It started. That's where it started. You had the epiphany, right?
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, I have been begging for this and I didn't even know it, right? Like it's the ability to filter and search our connections to identify who they know that we want to meet and leverage those relationships so that we are getting more business, top of the pipeline, more sales conversations through warm referrals and permission to name drop. And that's really the program that we teach. And, all of a sudden, the most, I don't want to say the hardest part of sales, because it really depends on what you sell, but the most time consuming, the most frustrating, typically, this cold calling outreach, numbers game, throw a bunch against the wall.
Right.
Like this eliminates all of that, because although the outreach process is longer because it's through having more conversations with your clients and your referral partners to ultimately get to those introductions or permission to name drop, it's a much shorter outcome process, and we're coming in at a much higher level of credibility. So when I saw that, which is now going on 11 years, I was like, this is all I want to do. And I launched my business. I was a partner in a sales training company. And then a little over 7 years ago, I said, this is all I want to do. And, she gave me a hug and said, come back when the trend is over and we're little over 7 years in, and we're thriving.
We're 7 years in and plus. But you know what I love about what you do, Brynne, is you've established your credibility and brand with your training company, and you've got a tremendous team, and you're out there really, you know, I won't say a pioneer of it, but you're setting trends. And with LinkedIn, it's constantly changing and changing. And there's one thing that I want to share right now. I mean, you've got all different types of programs, virtual online programs, because let's face it, March of this year, March of 2020, boom, we were stuck with the changes.
True.
So how is that pivot, or how does that, have you added more online courses?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, how have you adjusted, and what's the benefit to your ideal client for training?
Yeah, so we definitely had our pandemic pivot, but I will tell you, very fortunate in that our business really is thriving in this, because everyone who was out selling at trade shows and conferences and chambers of commerce meetings and wherever it was that they would get to know, like, and build trust with a buyer, you know, they're now stuck at their desktop, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just where we've landed. And I don't think it's changing or even going back to the way it was 100%. I think for years or decades to come, we are going to continue to do business remotely for lots of reasons. Businesses recognize you can do it remotely, and it's more affordable, and there's a lot of benefits to it. So, you know, people were like, oh my gosh, we now need to learn how to sell virtually. And some of that is learning how to do your lighting and do your video, and right, and how do you come across, and are you making eye contact, or are you looking off at the side watching
Exactly.
the screen, right? So there's a lot of that, but then there's the prospecting piece, and there's the, you know, we talk about, I love Bob Berg.
Go Giver Bob.
What's that? Go Giver Bob.
Go Giver Bob.
He wrote a book before Go Giver that's around, it's called Endless Referrals, which is more of my Bible even than the Go Giver. I mean, I love the Go Giver, but you know, this was the referral mentality, right? Like, this is the core of what I believe. And, you know, that's where the know, like, and trust came from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's the problem today is, how do we get to know them?
How do we get to know them, and then how do you engage with them, and how do you build those relationships? I mean, it's endless.
So LinkedIn is one of the only places. So there's their precursor now to the know, like, and trust, which is attract, teach, and engage. In order for them to know, like, and trust you, you've got to cover those three things. So we do this in many different ways, and we've got kind of structure around this, but how do we attract them? It's through content, it's through engagement, it's through messaging, it's through referrals. Like, we have to find new ways to get them to come to us, right? There's outbound.
Having a pull strategy, an inbound strategy, as well as an outbound strategy is what I think of what you're getting to. And it's just
100%. And it is a misnomer or a myth that if you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
So the inbound strategy takes a lot of outbound. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into creating raised hands. So, you know, it's not the inbound strategy is not, I'm going to create good content, I'm going to post it and sit back and wait. There's still an enormous amount of sales activity that has to go into creating an inbound world. So I believe that 95% of everything we do is outbound, right? Because even and then over time, when we build a thought leadership position and a subject matter expertise position, we'll start to get inbound. But it takes a really long time and a lot of work.
It does.
To get inbound. For most salespeople, I'll say we need to have an outbound mentality, but we need to have magnets. And some of those magnets are content or tips. I mean, there's a ton of things. Your profile also needs to tell a story. It needs to attract. And there are really 5 things that we need to do ultimately to attract, teach, and engage, to get our LinkedIn presence to convert our connections to conversations. We need to resonate with our buyers. We need to create curiosity. We need to teach them something new. There's so much noise out there that the only way they are going to be interested in having a conversation is if you've taught them something new. Mm-hmm. That thing that you taught them new needs to get them thinking differently about their current situation or their current state. If we can't, our biggest competitor is status quo. So if we can't.
Yeah, keep going with that, because I do want to talk about why your company and why not status quo. So
we have to teach them something different that gets them to think differently about their situation and lead them to our solution, not with our solution. When we lead with, we're pitching. We're telling them why they should work with us. When we lead to our solution, we are providing insights and value. And that's where we start to get hands raised. So, all right, let's go back. You had a question around status quo as our biggest competitor.
Well, I guess what I want to sum it up is, I know the social proof is there. You talked about outbound reach, inbound reach. I mean, if you go to your profile, it's tailor-made for your targeted buyer. Mm-hmm. So right now, my question is more on the competition side, because if you go to LinkedIn or Google or whatever search engine, there are a ton of LinkedIn trainers. And I know the answer to this, but I want you to say, why social sales? Like, why, if I'm an ideal client, why? And I know you've got the depth and we've already established the social proof. Why your company? What's different about your company as opposed to status quo, doing nothing? Obviously, that's bad. Mm-hmm. Or the competition.
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. Our philosophy is one that resonates with a lot of sales folks. So there are a few things. Number one, we completely believe in being authentic and growing relationships, and that sales comes from bringing in value, being a resource, building relationships, right? Making sure we're having the right conversations with the right people. The sale will come when the time is right. So we come from a philosophy. There are a lot of LinkedIn folks out there that would teach connect and pitch, right? Or connect and here are your 3 steps until you're selling to them. And we don't teach that. We really, and we do teach get on conversations. What we want are more conversations, but our conversations are insights driven and resource driven. We want to close for sales conversations, but we don't want to lead with sales conversations. We want to provide enough value that we earn the right for them to say, okay, how can I work with you? And so if that resonates with our salespeople, we're a great fit. If you have a sales team where they're like, we need immediate leads, like if they're lead generation, we're not for them.
Okay. I love your lane. You're staying in your lane, but what works because you've been doing it for a while. There's something that, and I normally don't do this, but I'm just going to, you go to Brynne's LinkedIn profile. And I love the first thing, the picture's great on LinkedIn. The about me, everything is there. But what I like is, and it's a tip that you talk about, you've got the little audio file, and I'm just going to read it and that's why I pulled it. I normally don't go from notes, but I want to make sure I get this right. You click on Brynne Tillman's LinkedIn profile, and it says with the audio icon, helping you convert content and connections to conversations by leveraging the power of LinkedIn. That's so nice. I want to read it twice. Okay. Helping you convert content and connections to conversations by leveraging the power of LinkedIn. So you're really talking about the whole engagement thing beyond just lead generation, having those conversations, which leads to your targeted buyers. Am I correct in saying that in layman's terms?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. You nailed it. And it's really about being the resource, attracting the right people to you and getting them excited to take your call. In the sea of pitches and noise, you really want to make sure that you are seen as someone that has earned the right to get a conversation. When we assume we connect with someone and we're like, oh, we have a lead. That is not a lead. It's a business card in a jar, right? Like it's not a lead. We've got to truly leverage our relationships. And if we really want to get to a place where we have a full pipeline at a high level of credibility on a consistent basis. And the bottom line is it really comes down to a few major pieces. Number one, making sure that your profile is showing up as a resource. Number two, we want to make sure that your content is not about what you want to tell them, but what they need to hear, what they want to hear, what they want to engage with, and that it leads to your solution, and that you're mastering the ask offer ratio, which means I'm asking you for 3 minutes of your time to read my blog post. At the end of the 3 minutes, I want you to say, man, that was an awesome use of my time, because that can move them closer and closer to us.
And that's all validation and everything you've outlined. I mean, I know you got billions and billions of tips, but today we wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and your company. And, you know, there are constant changes in the LinkedIn platform, but you are always on top of that. You're a go-to resource. Quickly, I'm going to let you have the last shot, then I'm going to close this out. Brynne, first of all, thank you. Anything else that you would like to add for engagement for your company as far as getting exposure out there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I invite everyone listening to come to LinkedInlibrary.com. It's a free resource. It's available to everyone there almost on a daily basis. We have new content that's being uploaded there, and it's just tons of downloads and podcasts and webinars and a lot of content that's just helps you to stay on top of what's happening with LinkedIn for sales. Totally free, LinkedInlibrary.com.
As always, it's good to always connect with somebody, but I look forward to meeting you one day, Brynne, face to face. There you have it. Brynne Tillman. Check out her company, check out her work, check out her quality content. Thank you for spending time with us today. And thank you out there for social watching.